Yeah, which
right?
yeah, obviously she's in. All right, let me see what else. I'm gonna take some of the questions from the panel if I can see them. Okay. Am I driving people out of the chat room?
No, you've done quite the opposite. You've increased it by over 400.
Wow. Somebody says that the professor said that birds are reptiles. Yes, technically they are. If you have a bird of prey, for example, it is a raptor, literally, and that's how they define it. And in order to own a raptor, you have to have a herpetology license, which of course is a reptile handler's license. So even the law recognizes that. It's not just a taxonomic thing. Somebody asked me if with our technology will we evolve naturally in the future. I don't think we're going to leave it up to evolution anymore. And one of the problems with that is that natural selection can be cruel. And natural selection is often inhumane in the way that it weeds people out. But while we may find ways of supporting the lives of people who would not have survived in a natural setting, we also have ways of ensuring that people are born more capable, so that we have artificial selection. If anybody had seen the movie Gattaca, that's very similar to what I'm talking about now, where we can bioengineer ourselves quite effectively both before and after we're born.
I mean, that's something that we discussed on an earlier program, and I think we came to we didn't concur. My view was that we would destroy ourselves, which I don't think was a view that you shared. But given the fact that 99.8% of all species that ever existed are now extinct, we have the arrogance to think that we're going to survive for...
We're going to be the next passenger pigeon. For those of you who don't know, once upon a time, only about 100 years ago, 1 out of 4 birds in the world were passenger pigeons. They were the most prolific species of bird that ever existed. And in a period of about 20 to 30 years, due directly because of humans, they are entirely extinct. They were wiped out in a couple of decades by us. And we're going to be much more efficient at wiping ourselves out.
Well, that's the view that I have. I don't think our extinction is going to come around by way of some pandemic. I think it's going to be because we're going to end up nuking each other to death. But I'm sure that we disagreed on that point before when I expressed it. I can't remember exactly what your response was, but I don't think as I say, I don't think we agreed on it.
Mm. Okay, well, I don't think it's going to be nuclear. I think it's going to be something else, and it may well be our complete disregard for the environment. But, I mean, eventually we're going to be extinct, whatever does it. You know, we're not going to exist forever, period. If we know the sun isn't going to exist forever, and neither is the earth, then certainly neither are we.
Well, there's that, and I genuinely believe as well that this idea that I mean, okay, it's what 5 billion years away before the sun actually collapses, although the collapse is actually an expansion and consumes the Earth. You know what prospect there is there for travelling across space and colonizing another planet? I mean, I really genuinely think that is a fanciful idea that will never happen. But
Yeah.
That's my...
Yeah, I started studying concepts for space travel a while back, and even if you had a means of simulating, artificial gravity, if you had, well, I don't even want to go into it. It's too long and drawn out. But you're right. There are logistics problems in the extreme with that idea. Okay, I'm checking the board again.
Yeah.
Realistically, space is huge and we aren't. I want that on a t-shirt. By the way, I have to watch what I say now. I mean, I posted something on one of my discussion boards, and 12 hours later I saw that it was a t-shirt being sold on Zazzle.
Well, sorry, can you answer a few questions?
Yes, please.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I've just got to try and sort something out.
Okay. Somebody says 800 million years, so chemical reaction would go foobar. Okay, I don't know where they came up with that estimate. We know it's going to happen eventually. Fortunately, it's not on any calendar I have access to. Put your picture in a t-shirt and say it's a Bigfoot sighting. Yes, you're welcome to. What did it say? Well, you just have to look up the t-shirt to get that. Do I like living in Texas? Everywhere I've ever lived, with the one exception of Iowa and Texas, was someplace that other people would send postcards to, wish you were here. So, I mean, Dallas is not the greatest place I've ever lived, but I've seen a hell of a lot worse. I mean, I've driven through a hell of a lot worse. I drove through Kansas City, Missouri, and I remember somebody I knew there said, "Isn't this a beautiful city?" And I'm like, "You got to be fucking kidding me." I mean, I don't understand how people can live like in Lansing, Michigan, and or Swindon or places like that, and not be bored shitless. At least I have Dallas. I mean, Dallas is a happening city. I used to live in Las Vegas. I lived in Los Angeles. I mean, went to Minneapolis, got to party my face off in that town. I was very impressed with Minneapolis. Everybody says Minnesota's completely different. I was like, okay, I don't care about the rest of it. Minneapolis rocked. That's just the kind of environment I grew up in. I couldn't stand living in some Toledo, Ohio, or someplace like that. It's so boring. I'm also a little irritated that here in Texas we don't have mountains. I've always had mountains on my horizon. I lived along and through the Rockies. I've had a residence in Alaska, Arizona, Oregon, Washington, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado, and West Texas, where there are still some mountains. And then I moved to Dallas, and I get up in a high office building where I've got a two-corner view, and the horizon is a straight line. It's eerie. It's unnatural. All right, I'm going to check some of the questions on the board.
So please do. I'm trying to multitask at the moment, and it's not helping.
Washington. When I lived in Seattle, in just before Mount St. Helens went off, I was a kid at that time. So gorgeous, so beautiful. There were ultralights in the air every morning, and everything was just ridiculously green and wet all the time. And we would go down to the Puget Sound, which was just 2 blocks from where I lived. And somebody, I mean, you see people with what are they called? The twin-masted schooners. You saw a lot of those, very beautiful sailing ships. But somebody had an old Spanish brig, so there was actually an old pirate ship that they would be sailing through there, and it was just so gorgeous. I'm so sad that I had to leave there. Beautiful place. And Mount St. Helens, or not Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier is huge. I mean, other people talk about having big mountains in their area, but I mean, Rainier was awesome. You could drive to it for hours, and it's still on the horizon. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Somebody going back to Australia. Yeah. Incesturbation. Okay. Do I do any sport? I like to play. I've never understood anybody that could watch. I really don't. I've never watched a football game. I've never watched a soccer game. I watched a hockey game and nobody got into a fight, so it was the only one I ever saw. I don't understand how anybody can sit back and listen to an announcer's voice, talking about the stats and statistics of some guy you're never going to meet. I remember when I got into when I was in middle school, we did the tackle football thing, and I remember I had a great deal of fun with that because I just got to hit the guy with the ball. That was my job. I didn't want the ball. I didn't want to kick it. But there's a guy who got a ball, and I'm supposed to knock him down, and that was a great deal of fun. And then what they did, they changed it so that I couldn't tackle anybody anymore. They got these little flags. It became flag football, and you had Velcroed flags, and this was ingenious. They put it on the sides of your little 1970s tennis shorts that we had to wear for playing PE, which means as I'm diving for somebody to grab these flags off of his shorts, invariably I'm pulling his pants down. Yeah, that's much worse than actually tackling the kid, right? Yeah. What a oh, so much for that. So I'm not into any particular sport. I did play Society for Creative Anachronisms for about 10 years and Amtgard 2. These are both where simulated medieval combat. A great deal of fun to go out there and hit somebody in the head with very heavy sticks and 16 gauge steel armor and heavy padding, and you just don't feel any more manly than when you go out there with a shield and a sword or an axe and bludgeon somebody into an ambulance. That is it. I sent 6 people to the hospital, and that is really a lot of
I'm
fun.
sorry. When I called you the Texan tank, I was not wrong, was I?
I went to this one event. It was so awesome. I was wearing I was wearing furs of like 11 different skinned animals over very rusty reticulated armor, and I had a helmet like Tulsa Doom from the old Conan movie with these horns. They were stuck on the side. They were fixed so that you could knock them off with a sword, and I would just plug them back in. But I had the horned helmet, and I had my shield, my axe, my sword, and I was on a field with 900 medieval warriors, and across this virgin grass
Yes, if you can't hear Aaron, it's because he's frozen. Everything is fine. It's frozen at your end, not his. So just no, actually, Aaron, you have frozen. So